Well, it's a painting of Manhattan from the Hudson River, from the Weehawken side of the Hudson River.
Okay. When did you create this painting? If you don't remember, that's okay.
I don't remember exactly. So yeah, it's a number of years ago, 7, 8 years ago.
Okay. Okay, Paul, can you give us a little information about this painting? I'll say, first of all, that I'm drawn in by the dimensionality of it. It looks as though I can actually walk into that tunnel.
This is the Watsettsing train station in Bloomfield, or East Orange, right between Bloomfield and East Orange.
Okay.
And,
It's really nice.
thank you.
It's quite large as well.
Well, there are a few of those.
Yeah, you do some large paintings, I see. This is a still life, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'm glad you recognize it. For what it is.
So you paint a wide variety of subjects, obviously.
Yes.
Okay. So, just so our viewers can have an idea of how prolific you are, Paul, I'm just going to take a quick pan of this storage area. And I just think that's totally amazing. And I'm thoroughly impressed by the size of the canvases on some of your works as well.
Yeah, actually, this is just a small part of the paintings. There's another storage area upstairs, and there's 2 galleries that have a bunch of paintings, and it's the ones I've sold. You know,
So one would think that you like to paint, or you're trying to use it all before it dries up.
Or I'm a glutton for punishment.
Or a glutton for punishment. It's all very colorful as well. And there's a masterpiece over here, which I can only show you in portions because it's so large. But again, I get a sense of three-dimensionality from lots of your work. And here again, it looks as though it's some sort of tunnel or a train track, and it's as though I can walk down the track.
This is the station at 125th Street in Manhattan, looking towards the Riverside Cathedral.
Okay. Very nice, Paul.
I'm not really finished with it, but thank you.
Are you always in a creative mood, Paul, or do you have to do something to induce your creativity?
You know, Rodin was asked a similar question.
Oh, no. I was a big fan of Rodin. And?
But, you know, because he among a lot of artists, would get up with the morning light and work until the light was gone.
Yeah.
And someone once asked him, they said, "Master, how do you do it? You know, how do you find inspiration, you know, all the time?" And he said, "Well, I don't, but I'm prepared when it comes."
Wow. No, that's as we used to say, that's deep. That's also a very good answer. You know, I was very fortunate to be able to visit the Rodin Museum in Paris when I was there. And I've always appreciated art, and I've liked sculpture, but I was never, ever drawn into a piece of work, to any pieces of work as I was with his work, because he did a lot of hands, and it seemed as though the fingers were about to move, you know, and I just kept looking at them, and the more I looked, the more lifelike they became, and that was very invigorating and inspirational all at the same time.
Yeah. He's a wonderful artist, one of the great all-time sculptors.
Yeah. So that's great. Has your work been shown anywhere?
Well, actually, yes.
You have to give me a longer answer than that. Where has your work been shown?
Well, I'm disappointed at the question, because I thought since it's been shown so much, everybody would know the answer to that.
Well, you have to remember, I'm new to your art, and I've been seeing it, not even realizing it was yours. So
well, one can hope.
Do you have a gallery that you work out of?
Yes, I do. I've been with the Salander O'Reilly Gallery.
Can you repeat that?
The Salander O'Reilly Gallery,
Okay.
which is in New York. It's on 71st Street between Madison and Fifth Avenue. And I've been showing with them for many years.
Okay.
I've shown with a number of galleries here and there before that.
Okay.
But, and I've also had a number of museum shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I've shown in various places. I've shown in Paris and Israel.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, how does one arrive at a relationship with a gallery so that your work is always there? That's just a curious thing. Just a curious question.
Well, I'm really not an expert in this subject.
Well, how did it happen for you?
Because I spent the last 20 years or more bringing up my kids. So
have I.
Yeah. No. So I mean, it's like most people in my position immerse themselves in the art world.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought up my kids and immersed myself in the world of art.
Yeah.
And so I really don't have, all the pieces I'm supposed to have. I just feel as though I've been very fortunate that when I did go to galleries, I found that very often they were interested. And, a lot of that happened when I was much younger. And, it seems like, the art world is still about looking to discover younger artists.
Absolutely.
But
all the arts, the performing arts, the standard arts, absolutely. Yeah.
But I remember Alan Frumkin, who was the director of the Frumkin Gallery, saying that an artist's relationship to a gallery dealer is much like a courtship. And one, has to develop that relationship, and and eventually it may lead to some fruition, it may not.
Mm-hmm.
But that was his take on it.
Okay.
As for me, it really was a kind of an accident. I walked into the gallery and I said to the person who was there, this is a really good gallery. You show really good stuff. And I was talking to the owner. And he was, and it turned out that we really had very similar taste.
Mm-hmm.
We would argue over silly things like who was the greater painter, Albert Wright or Blakelock, Ralph Blakelock, which are the two American mystics, who really are very, very similar in a lot of ways. But we enjoyed our arguments, and we became friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it was 2 or 3 years before he even asked if he was curious about seeing my pictures, because I never asked him.
Yeah.
It didn't,
Well, that's why I asked that question. I think it's pretty interesting the way these things work out.
Yeah, so it was just
as opposed to having an agent who shows your work.
I mean, I know people who have agents that show their work.
Mm-hmm.
But this was just one of those things that when he saw my work, he told me that he wasn't surprised based on how much what he knew about me previously.
Okay. Well, I'm also curious as to since art is such a beautiful personal thing, I'm always interested in the surroundings in which it's created. So I'll ask you, have you ever worked in any exotic places? Have you been on a trip and saw something really interesting, unusual, and that inspired you to work?
Well, my feeling about that is that all places are exotic.
Okay.
And that when one creates a moving work of art, one makes of it exotic. One brings that out.
Mm-hmm.
Corot was painting paradise in his backyard. Bonnard was making these beautiful still lifes on his kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
Watching his wife take a bath.
Mm-hmm.
And you go on and on and on, and you realize that there's almost nobody who didn't find in some exotic location in something that was particularly more exotic than at home.
Uh-huh.
The only person I could think of who actually really grew when he did that was Gauguin.
Mm-hmm.
And he really did grow a great deal, but he was very good anyway.
Yeah.
Didn't matter where he was.
Okay, that's another good answer. Okay, Paul, it's been lots of fun talking to you.
Thank you. It's been lots of fun for me too.
And thanks for sharing a lush life. Keep on living it.
Thank you.
This is Marion Green. See you next time on The Lush Life.